In the heart of the great savannah, where the golden grasses kissed the horizon and the earth thrummed with the pulse of life, two villages sat on opposite sides of a deep river. On the side of the river where the sun shone brightest, stood the peaceful and prosperous village of Isiama. This village was led by an ancient and wise native doctor named Olamide. His people called him the Eyes of the Gods because it was believed that he could see beyond the world of the living, into the realms of spirits and ancestors. Olamide's wisdom was unparalleled. He always spoke the truth, even when the truth was bitter, and he acted only in ways that benefited his people. He could heal the sick, summon the rains during droughts, and bring guidance when confusion clouded his village's heart. Olamide's powers were a gift from the ancestors, a spiritual bond so sacred that no one could question his actions. The people of Isiama would gather in the twilight hours, surrounding him at the great stone circle where he would communicate with the spirits of their ancestors. His voice, like the rhythm of the drum, commanded the attention of even the winds, and the sky would seem to listen, offering its blessings when he spoke. But just across the river, in the village of Ikoro, a different kind of power was rising. This power was not built on wisdom or honor, but on greed and fear. The native doctor of Ikoro, Kalu, was a man of ambition and cunning. He had always defied the laws of his community, for he believed that power was something to be taken, not earned. Kalu had long resented Olamide, watching from the shadows as the people of Isiama flourished under his guidance while his own people suffered under his rule. But Kalu knew that he could never rise to Olamide's stature through righteous means. Instead, he would use his powers for personal gain. Unlike Olamide, Kalu did not follow the guidance of the ancestors. Instead, he called upon spirits of darkness and used his knowledge of potions and curses to control the lives of his villagers. Those who sought his help did not do so for healing or wisdom. They came with gifts of gold, livestock, and favors to pay for his dark services. Kalu was known to sell his powers for money, sometimes taking the lives of those who stood in the way of his ambitions. He would curse people to die slowly, and his words were often filled with venom, knowing that he could use the fear he instilled to manipulate others. Kalu's magic was potent, but it came at a cost. He was losing himself in the process. The more he wielded the dark forces, the more he was drawn into a void of selfishness and cruelty. His body had become gaunt, his eyes were hollow, and his soul was slowly decaying. Yet, he did not care. Power was the only thing that mattered, and he would do whatever it took to obtain it. For years, the two native doctors lived on opposite sides of the river, with the people of Isiama living in peace and the people of Ikoro in fear. But the winds were changing, and the balance between light and darkness was about to be shattered. It was during the harvest festival, a time when both villages celebrated the bounty of the land and gave thanks to their ancestors, that the two doctors would finally meet. The air was thick with excitement, and the villagers had gathered from far and wide to offer sacrifices at the sacred shrine. Both Olamide and Kalu had been invited to perform their duties, Olamide to bless the people with prosperity, and Kalu to offer protection against evil spirits. As Olamide stepped into the shrine, his heart felt heavy. The voices of his ancestors were growing restless, warning him of an impending storm. He offered his prayers and performed the sacred rituals, calling upon the spirits of the earth and sky. But even as he blessed the people, his thoughts lingered on the growing threat from across the river. Kalu, on the other hand, stood at the other end of the festival, surrounded by his followers. His eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and his mouth twisted into a smile that was anything but kind. He whispered dark incantations under his breath, his hands moving in patterns that only the spirits of darkness could understand. The people of Ikoro looked on in fear and awe, knowing that Kalu's power was both a blessing and a curse. The moment that Olamide and Kalu laid eyes on each other, the entire festival seemed to hold its breath. The villagers, sensing the tension between the two men, fell silent. A storm was coming, one that would change their lives forever. As the night deepened and the full moon hung heavy in the sky, the tension between Olamide and Kalu became palpable. The winds picked up, and the crackling of the fire seemed to fade into a low hum. Olamide and Kalu exchanged words, their voices low but charged with unspoken animosity. you have become a shadow of yourself, Kalu, Olamide said, his eyes piercing the darkness. You defy the laws of our ancestors. You sell your powers for gold and favor, and in doing so, you have corrupted the very essence of the spiritual world. Kalu's laugh echoed through the night, cold and mocking. And what of you, Olamide? You hide behind the veil of the gods, pretending to be their servant, but you are nothing more than a puppet. I, on the other hand, have learned the true secrets of the world. I do not need the gods, I am the master of my own fate. The air crackled with energy as the two native doctors stood at the center of the gathering, their powers clashing like thunderclouds. The villagers watched, their eyes wide with fear, unsure of what would happen next. It was then that Kalu made his move. He raised his hands to the heavens, and dark smoke began to swirl around him. A bolt of lightning struck the ground at his feet, and the earth trembled. Olamide stepped back, feeling the dark magic pulse in the air. But before he could react, Kalu spoke the ancient words of a forbidden spell. I call upon the spirits of the forgotten, Kalu intoned, his voice dripping with malice. I offer my soul in exchange for the power of the gods themselves. In that moment, a flash of blinding light filled the sky. The winds howled, and the ground split open as the spirits of the dead surged forth. The villagers gasped in horror as Kalu's body seemed to writhe and twist, his features contorting as if something inside him was trying to break free. Olamide could only watch in stunned silence as Kalu's power grew, his dark magic consuming him. But in the chaos, Olamide's connection to the gods was also tested. The spirits of his ancestors, sensing the imbalance, began to fade, and the land itself seemed to cry out in pain. What have you done? Olamide shouted, his voice rising above the storm. You have exchanged your soul for power, but the price you will pay is your humanity. But it was too late. Kalu's eyes burned with an unholy fire, and his voice rang out in a cruel laugh. It is too late for you, Olamide. The gods are mine now, and you are nothing. Watch as I take what is rightfully mine. With a final incantation, Kalu released his spell, and the two native doctors felt the shockwave of magic pulse through the air. In that instant, everything changed. Olamide's powers were stripped from him, and Kalu's form shimmered as his soul was bound to the ancient forces he had called upon. But there was a catch. Though Kalu had gained power, he had also taken on a curse. His form was now twisted, a mixture of man and spirit, neither fully alive nor dead. His eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and his body was marked by the very forces he had summoned. Olamide, now powerless, fell to his knees in the dirt.